My sister-in-law mocked me for not having a degree and dismissed me at every gathering. "You're basically just a babysitter," she scoffed. My brother-in-law added, "No one takes you seriously." But later, sister-in-law showed up at my job interview, begging me for a referral. For years, my SIL and BIL ridiculed me for being a stay-at-home mom without a degree. She'd mock me at every family gathering. Years later, I secretly built a successful freelance tech career and landed a great job. At my interview, I ran into her. She was also applying. A week later, she called me, asking for a referral. "You're here?" "For an interview," she said, eyes wide, clutching her designer handbag like it could save her. "Yeah," I said. "Front-end dev role." "You?" She swallowed. "Product ops. I got laid off last month." We sat there in awkward silence, both waiting for our names to be called, but for the first time in years, I felt calm. Honestly, if you told me 10 years ago that I'd be in a sleek downtown Chicago office building, wearing heels and a navy blue dress, waiting to be interviewed for a competitive tech role, and that my high-and-mighty sister-in-law would be sitting beside me, nervous, unemployed, and looking at me like I had the upper hand, I would have laughed. Or cried. Maybe both. I'm Anika, 38, and for most of my adult life, I've been a stay-at-home mom. I met my husband, Rehan, when I was 22. We were both working at the same grocery store in Evanston, he in produce, me in the bakery. Rehan was finishing his computer science degree at the time. I had dropped out of community college the year before when my mom's health declined and I had to work full-time to help out. Rehan and I fell for each other fast. He liked that I was grounded, practical, and that I didn't pretend to be someone I wasn't. We married a year later, had our first daughter at 24, and 2 more kids followed. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my kids and don't regret staying home with them. But people really underestimate how invisible motherhood can feel. Especially in families like mine. Rehan comes from a very status-conscious family. His parents are both immigrants who pride themselves on how far they've come. They worked hard, no doubt, but they raised their kids with this unspoken rule that success must look a certain way. Degrees. Promotions. Polished resumes. Impressive titles. So naturally, when Rehan's older sister Priya, the family's golden child, met me, she sized me up and wrote me off in a single glance. I still remember that first dinner at their family's Skokie home. She asked where I'd gone to school. I said, Oakton Community, but I didn't finish, and she didn't even wait for the explanation. Just nodded with that tight-lipped smile that said, "Oh." One of those. Her husband, Zane, was even worse. Always had a smart-ass comment ready. "So, you just watch the kids all day, or it must be nice not having a real boss." They weren't jokes. They were jabs, disguised as banter, thrown casually at family dinners, Eid get-togethers, even kids' birthday parties. Priya would go on and on about her deadlines, her team, her international strategy meetings. At one dinner, I tried to join the conversation about work-life balance. She cut me off mid-sentence and said, "Well, you wouldn't really know, right? You've never had to juggle both." I laughed, because what else could I do? Cry in the mashed potatoes? Rehan always said, "Ignore her. She's just insecure." But over time, it chipped away at me. I started to feel like I had something to prove. Not to them, necessarily. But to myself. When my youngest started full-day kindergarten, I finally had time. Real time. Time I hadn't had in a decade. I could have gone back to school, and I did consider it, but I was hesitant. We couldn't really afford tuition, and I hated the idea of student loans at that age. I started watching YouTube videos on HTML and CSS just to dabble. Before I knew it, I was hooked. Every night after the kids went to bed, I'd open my laptop and code. I built little websites. Then more advanced ones. I joined forums. Started doing tiny freelance gigs on Upwork. Failed a few. Got better. Slowly built a portfolio. No one in my extended family knew. Not even Priya. I didn't want the eye rolls. I didn't want the good for you condescension. I wanted to grow without their shadows looming over me. 3 years into freelancing, I was earning more than I ever thought possible without a degree. I had clients from LA to London, and a solid LinkedIn presence, all self-built. One of my clients, a startup founder in Chicago, referred me to a friend of his whose fintech company was expanding. I sent in my resume, along with my portfolio, and was invited to an in-person interview. It was a crisp Wednesday morning. I dropped the kids off at school, curled my hair, put on minimal makeup, and took the train downtown. The office was in River North, inside one of those buildings with floor-to-ceiling windows and security guards who nod like you belong there, even if you're not sure you do. I was early. Sat in the waiting area, going over my answers, breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth. Then the elevator pinged. And out walked Priya. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. Maybe my nerves were playing tricks on me. But no, there she was, standing in the same lobby, her heels clicking nervously on the tile. She looked tired. Still put together, but not like the high-flying Priya I remembered. Her blazer looked a little too tight, her eyes a bit sunken. She spotted me. Froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. Then, Anika? Hi, I said. What are you doing here? Interview, I said, simply. Front-end developer role. She blinked. You? I smiled. Yeah. We sat in silence for a minute. Then she said, quieter, I'm here for product ops. I got laid off last month. I nodded. Tough market right now. That was it. No smugness. No jabs. Just tension. I got called in first. The interview went really well. The manager was friendly, familiar with my portfolio, and even mentioned one of my side projects. I left that building walking on air. 2 days later, I got the offer. Full-time, remote flexibility, benefits, more than I'd hoped for. The next night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Priya. Hey Anika. I heard you got the role. Congrats. I wanted to ask, would you be open to referring me? I didn't make it past the first round. But sometimes a referral helps. I listened to it twice. I didn't respond right away. In fact, I let the message sit in my inbox for 3 days. Every time I thought about replying, I'd hear her voice in my head from years ago, sharp, smug, amused at my expense. You're basically just a babysitter. I mean, you can't expect people to take you seriously without a real job, right? Her voice had always had this cutting edge to it, like she couldn't help but look down on me, even when she was being nice. Those jabs weren't one-offs, they were consistent little reminders that, in her eyes, I was lesser. Not ambitious. Not important. Not enough. I'd sat through so many family dinners where she'd hijack conversations about parenting just to remind everyone how hard it was to be a working mom, and how people like me had it easy. Funny thing was, she'd never once asked me about my life. Not about the kids. Not about how I managed our house. Not about my interests or dreams. She didn't care. She'd decided early on who I was and never looked past that. And now, she wanted a favor. Rehan noticed me staring off during dinner that evening. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Then after a moment, I said, your sister called me. She wants a referral. His eyebrows rose. For your company? I nodded again. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then, you going to do it? I shrugged. I don't know. She didn't even congratulate me. Just went straight to the ask. Rehan let out a breath and shook his head. Classic. And it was classic. That's what got to me the most. Even in that moment, jobless, humbled, she still couldn't offer basic kindness or grace. No, hey, I heard you got the job. That's amazing, congrats. No acknowledgement of how far I'd come. Just the bare minimum to extract what she needed. Still, part of me felt guilty. It's that people pleaser in me, the one that had been trained since childhood to keep the peace, smooth things over, take the high road. I hated how strong that reflex was. I opened my laptop later that night, clicked on her voicemail again, and then opened LinkedIn to see if she'd updated her profile. She had. Still listed her last job, no mention of being laid off. I skimmed her resume, it was polished, as expected. But what struck me was her list of accomplishments. They were all real, sure, but framed in this exaggerated, corporate speak way. Buzzwords layered on buzzwords, like she was trying to puff up her roles as much as possible. I knew the culture at my new company. They valued honesty, humility, people who did the work without putting on a show. They liked folks who could collaborate, who were teachable, not people who acted like they were always the smartest in the room. I thought about her in that interview room, probably delivering some rehearsed answer with her chin raised just a bit too high. I thought about the hiring manager who had told me during my interview, "We're trying to build a team that listens. Ego gets in the way of progress." And that's when I realized. I didn't owe Priya anything. Not a referral. Not even a reply. Not after the years of condescension, the dismissiveness, the offhand cruelty. Still, I was raised to be polite. To take the high road. So I wrote a reply. "Hi Priya, thanks for reaching out. I did check in with the team, and it looks like they've already made a decision on your application and won't be moving forward. Best of luck with your job search." Anika, I kept it short. No emotion. No bitterness. But no help either. Not this time. Rehan saw the email later and just nodded. Fair. I didn't hear back from her. But I did see her a few weeks later, at a cousin's birthday party in Naperville. The whole family was there. Everyone was talking about my new job. Rehan's mom kept going on about how proud she was, how she always knew I was smart, which made me want to roll my eyes so hard they'd fall out. Priya hovered near the food table, picking at a slice of fruit. She didn't say anything to me all afternoon. At one point, I caught her glancing my way, not glaring, but watching, like she didn't quite know how to approach me now. That was the first time I realized the power dynamic had shifted. And it wasn't about me having a job or her not. It was about me knowing who I was, and her finally seeing it. I wasn't the helper in the kitchen anymore. I wasn't the one they patronized or whispered about behind my back. I was someone who had grown, on my own terms, and succeeded despite their dismissal. The party dragged on in that way family gatherings often do, too much food, too many conversations happening at once, kids running around with frosting on their faces. I spent most of it catching up with Rehan's cousins, who were genuinely warm and curious about my new role. One of them, Samira, pulled me aside near the drinks table. "You're working for, company name redacted, now, right?" she asked, wide-eyed. "That's amazing. Priya told us she interviewed there too." I gave a neutral smile. "Yeah, I think she did." Samira leaned in, lowering her voice. She said the company wasn't really her vibe. Too startup-y. She made air quotes around the word. I nearly laughed. That was Priya's story? That she turned them down? I nodded politely and said, "Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of culture." Later, while helping stack disposable plates and half-eaten samosas, I overheard Priya talking to another relative about consulting projects she was supposedly doing while looking for the right fit. It was vague, scripted, like she had rehearsed this version of events for anyone who asked. And honestly, I didn't feel smug. I felt sad. Sad that she was still trying to spin things instead of just saying, "I'm between jobs." It's been tough. That kind of vulnerability was never her thing, and maybe it never would be. She was still clinging to her old image. A week or two passed after that gathering. I slipped into my new routine quickly. The job was fast-paced but flexible. I worked from home most days, logged in early while the kids got ready for school, knocked out tasks while dinner cooked, sometimes answered Slack messages with one hand while folding laundry with the other. There were moments I felt overwhelmed, imposter syndrome knocking on my door like an uninvited guest, but my team was kind and collaborative, and every time I pushed through a hard coding problem, I'd remember that I earned this. One Friday, while running errands near Devon Avenue, I bumped into Rehan's mom at Patel Brothers. We hugged, chatted about her latest blood pressure meds, and then she, unprompted, asked, "Did Priya ever reach out to you? She mentioned something about you working at that tech company." I blinked. "Yeah, she reached out." Her mom gave a hesitant smile. "She was saying how proud she is of you. How far you've come." I didn't say anything right away. She continued, "You know Priya, she's not good at saying things directly. But she sees it. She sees you." I gave a polite nod, not trusting myself to say more. That night, I replayed those words. "She sees you." I wasn't sure I believed it. Or maybe I just didn't care whether she did anymore. I'd spent so long trying to prove something to people who weren't even looking. And now that they finally were, it didn't matter. What mattered was that my kids were watching. A few nights later, my youngest daughter, Noor, sat beside me on the couch while I reviewed some code. "You're like a real computer person now," she said, "with that all only a 9-year-old can muster." I laughed. "I guess I am." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you think I could be one too?" And just like that, all those years of self-doubt, of feeling less than in the eyes of people like Priya, they shrank into something small. Because this moment mattered more. Showing my kids that growth isn't linear. That you can start late and still go far. That you can be underestimated and still rise. That you can be mocked and still choose kindness. Well, sometimes. The truth is, I hadn't entirely let go of the sting. Not completely. Some things take longer to heal than others. But I was getting there. And life had a funny way of offering more chances to confront the past. Because just when I thought things had settled, just when I had made peace with everything, another situation came knocking. And this time, it wasn't just a referral. It was something bigger. A few weeks after that moment with Noor, I was on a Zoom call with a team member from the HR department. They were doing a round of internal referrals again for a newly funded department, expanding into digital product consulting. The role wasn't even public yet, but they were asking us internally first to suggest people who might be a fit. "It's a hybrid role," she explained, "mostly client-facing, strong background in product ops or strategy would help. We're hoping to find someone adaptable, collaborative, someone who knows how to work across teams without making it all about themselves." I paused. In the past, I might have immediately thought of Priya. It would have been the automatic choice. Her resume fit perfectly, her experience was solid, and she knew the lingo. 10 years ago, I might have tripped over myself to mention her name just to be seen as generous, forgiving, big enough to extend the olive branch. But I didn't say anything. Because her name didn't feel right anymore. It wasn't just about what she'd said to me years ago, though that certainly still lived in the corners of my memory. It was about what kind of culture we were building here. What kind of people I wanted to bring in. I'd worked hard to become someone who people trusted in this job. I didn't want to put that at risk. Still, it was strange, this power to influence who got through the door. Years ago, I couldn't even get my foot in it. Later that day, I got a text from her. "Priya, hey. Just checking in. Hope the new job is going well." No ask. No mention of the referral. Just that. I stared at the message for a long time. She hadn't reached out since the email exchange weeks ago. And now here she was again, just poking her head in, either trying to keep a line open or perhaps trying to salvage some form of dignity. Either way, I didn't know how to feel. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I closed my laptop and took a walk. It was one of those early spring evenings in Chicago, just warm enough to skip the jacket but still chilly in the shade. The kind of weather that tricks you into believing new things are possible. I walked past a family pushing a stroller, a group of teens filming something on their phones, and then by a cafe where I used to sit with my oldest, Maya, back when she was still in diapers. Back when my biggest concern was whether I'd remembered to pack extra wipes. It hit me then, how much had changed. Not just professionally. Not just financially. But me. I had changed. I'd spent years absorbing other people's views of my worth. I let Priya's comments echo in my head longer than they ever deserved to stay. But now? I didn't need her approval. I didn't even want it. What I wanted was peace. And boundaries. When I got home, I sent a short reply. Me, thanks. Job's going well. Hope you're doing okay too. That was it. No invitation to catch up. No opening to ask for help. Just polite distance. I didn't hear back. But she did show up again, not in person, not even through text, but through my mother-in-law. Over lunch one Sunday, as we were wrapping up our meals and trying to get the kids to stop fighting over the last gulab jamun, Rehan's mom brought it up. Priya's thinking of starting her own consultancy, she said casually, spooning rice onto her plate. She said she's tired of corporate. Wants more freedom, like you. I nearly choked on my water. Like me? I asked. She nodded. You're working from home, making your own schedule, still raising your children. It inspired her, I think. She said you made her realize there are other ways to define success. I didn't know what to say. Inspired her? That same woman who once scoffed at me for baking pies while she climbed ladders now wanted to emulate my path? I smiled politely, said nothing, but internally? I felt the weight of 100 unspoken words. Inspire her? If only she knew the long, painful road it took to build what I had, not just a career, but a sense of identity. If only she knew how many nights I doubted myself, how many times I almost gave up, how I still, even now, sometimes questioned whether I belonged. But maybe that's what people like Priya never understood. That there's more strength in rebuilding your self-worth quietly than there is in broadcasting it loudly. Still, I kept my face neutral and moved on to clearing the plates. It wasn't until later, as Rehan and I were driving home with the kids half asleep in the back seat, that he said it. She's watching you now. For the first time ever, she's watching you without judgment. I nodded. And? I think it scares her a little. I didn't disagree. The thing about people like Priya, people who build their identity around titles, degrees, and the illusion of superiority, is that they're never quite sure what to do when someone they dismissed starts thriving. They don't know how to recalibrate. Suddenly, the person they look down on becomes a mirror, reflecting all the ways they've been wrong. Or worse, unkind. But that was her burden to carry. Not mine. Mine was full already, full of projects, parenting, team meetings, and self-respect that had taken years to earn. And then, just when I thought the dust had finally settled, something unexpected happened. My company announced it was opening a mentorship program for women transitioning into tech from non-traditional backgrounds. They were looking for mentors. And my manager? She wanted me to be one. When my manager first brought it up during our Monday stand-up, I blinked at the screen for a second. A mentor? Me? I asked, not hiding the surprise in my voice. She smiled. You've done the work. You know what it's like to carve your own path. That perspective is exactly what we're looking for. I couldn't argue. And the truth was, I was flattered. More than flattered, actually. I was deeply moved. All those years of being spoken over, belittled, made to feel like I was just a footnote in someone else's narrative, this was the opposite of that. I was now being asked to guide others. To lead. I said yes. The program launched a month later. We were assigned ments based on our backgrounds and areas of expertise. Mine was a woman named Fariha, a 29-year-old mom of two, recently laid off from retail, trying to transition into UX design. First-generation immigrant. No degree. She reminded me a lot of myself, just at a different point in the journey. I threw myself into it. Weekly check-ins, reviewing her wireframes, giving her feedback on how to present herself in interviews. I wasn't just teaching her tech. I was showing her how to believe in herself, how to stop apologizing for not fitting the mold. One afternoon, while I was prepping her for an upcoming interview, I got an email notification. Subject line, Speaking Opportunity, Women in Tech Panel, requesting your participation. It was from the HR team. They were organizing a panel for Women's History Month, inviting women from different departments to share their stories. I clicked on the link to the event lineup. There it was, my name, my title, my bio. And under the discussion topics section? Reclaiming your narrative, thriving without the traditional path. I nearly laughed. It felt surreal. But it also felt just. A few weeks later, I was up on that stage, a modern, glass-walled conference room filled with 100 attendees and more watching the livestream. My manager introduced me. I was nervous at first, but once I started talking about my journey, from community college dropout to stay-at-home mom to self-taught developer, something inside me settled. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I spoke with a confidence I had never been allowed to show in front of Priya or Zane or any of the others who used to smirk at my small life. And then came the part one wasn't expecting. After the event, during the little networking hour they had in the common area with snacks and mocktails, someone tapped me on the shoulder. Anika? I turned around, and there she was. Priya. Looking polished as ever, blazer crisp, makeup immaculate. But this time, no fake smile. Just hesitation. I saw the livestream, she said. I raised an eyebrow. You did? She nodded. One of my old coworkers posted it on LinkedIn. Said it was powerful. So I watched. I didn't say anything. She inhaled sharply. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For the things I've said in the past. I know I was awful to you. I was threatened, honestly. I thought I was doing everything right, and here you were, doing everything different, and somehow happier, more at peace. I couldn't understand it. And instead of learning from it, I mocked it. That wasn't what I expected. Not even close. I looked at her, this woman who had once made me feel like less than nothing, now standing in front of me, admitting her jealousy like it burned her. I appreciate you saying that, I replied, keeping my voice level. She nodded, then asked the question I knew was coming. Do you think there's any chance you could connect me with your team again? I've been trying to get back into product ops. I'm struggling more than I expected. This time, I didn't hesitate. No, I said calmly. Her eyes widened. Oh. I didn't add anything. I didn't soften it. I didn't owe her that. The silence between us was enough. After a moment, I offered a small, polite smile. I wish you well though. Truly. She stood there for a few seconds, then gave a small nod and walked away, heels clicking quietly against the polished floor. I turned back to my team, where Fariha was chatting excitedly with two junior devs. I walked over, joined their conversation, and didn't give Priya another thought that night. A month later, I got an envelope in the mail, handwritten, no return address. Inside was a simple card. Thank you for teaching me that grace doesn't mean silence. You've become everything I once believed you couldn't. I hope to grow the same way, someday. Priya. I tucked it into a drawer. Not because I needed to treasure it, but because it reminded me of something important. That sometimes, the most satisfying revenge isn't confrontation. It's living so fully, so completely outside of their box, that the people who underestimated you are forced to reevaluate everything. And if they're lucky, they grow. If not? That's on them. As for me, I'm just getting started.